Here's a simple puzzle. I'm thinking of a rule that governs a sequence of 3 numbers. The sequence 2, 4, 6 fits my rule. Your job is to figure out what the rule is. You can test it by proposing your own 3-number sequences, and I'll tell you yes or no. Does it fit or not? Take a second. What would you guess the rule is? And more importantly, what sequence would you test first to check? If you're like most people, you probably guessed something like even numbers increasing by 2. And to test that, you probably thought of something like 8, 10, 12, or maybe 20, 22, 24. Here's the thing. Those sequences will all get a yes, every single one. And you'll feel more and more confident that you've cracked it. But you'd be wrong. The actual rule is much simpler than you think. Any 3 ascending numbers, 1, 2, 3 works, 5, 47, 900 works. You could have discovered this by testing something that broke your assumption, like 1, 2, 3 or 10, 5, 20 early on. Almost nobody does. This isn't a trick question. It's one of the most famous experiments in the history of psychology, and it reveals something uncomfortable about how your mind actually works. What you just experienced is called confirmation bias. At its core, confirmation bias is our tendency to search for, interpret and remember information in a way that confirms what we already believe, while unconsciously ignoring or dismissing evidence that would challenge it. The key word there is unconsciously. This isn't about being deliberately closed-minded or stubborn. Most people genuinely believe they're evaluating evidence fairly. That's exactly what makes confirmation bias so hard to catch in yourself. It doesn't feel like bias from the inside. It feels like being right. The bias shows up in 3 specific places: in what information we choose to seek out, in how we interpret information once we have it, and in what we remember afterward. All 3 tend to bend quietly in the direction of what we already think is true. This isn't a rare quirk that affects a few closed-minded people. It's one of the most consistently replicated findings in all of cognitive psychology, showing up across cultures, age groups, education levels, and virtually every domain of human decision-making. The person who first identified this pattern was a British psychologist named Peter Wason in a paper published in 1960. The puzzle you just tried, the 2, 4, 6 sequence, was Wason's original experiment. He recruited 29 participants and gave them exactly the task you just heard. The actual rule, again, was simply any 3 numbers in ascending order. The results were striking. Only 6 of the 29 participants reached the correct conclusion without ever proposing an incorrect rule first. 13 reached one wrong conclusion before eventually getting it right. 9 reached 2 or more incorrect conclusions. And notably, participants who got it wrong weren't lacking intelligence. These were, by Wason's own description, intelligent young adults. What they lacked wasn't cognitive ability, it was a strategy. Wason's explanation was precise. Participants overwhelmingly tested triples that confirmed their current hypothesis, rather than triples designed to falsify it. If you think the rule is even numbers increasing by 2, the useful test isn't another even numbers increasing by 2 sequence. You already expect that to work. The useful test is something that could prove you wrong. Almost nobody instinctively reaches for that. Wason followed this up a few years later with an even more famous experiment, now known as the Wason selection task. Participants were shown 4 cards, one showing the letter E, one showing K, one showing the number 4, and one showing 7. They were told a rule. If a card has a vowel on one side, it has an even number on the other side. Their task was to identify which cards needed to be turned over to test whether the rule was true. The correct answer is E and 7. E to check whether an even number is on the other side, and crucially 7, because if a vowel were on the back of that card, it would break the rule entirely. Most people, though, choose E and 4. The 2 cards that can only confirm the rule and never disprove it. The card most capable of proving them wrong is the one people are least likely to pick. Wason's work essentially launched an entire field of research into cognitive bias years before Kahneman and Tversky's more famous work in the 1970s. And the core insight has held up remarkably well across more than 60 years of replication. Given the choice between confirming and challenging our own beliefs, we instinctively reach for confirmation. Once you understand confirmation bias, it becomes almost impossible to unsee it. In news and media consumption, this is perhaps the most visible modern example. People tend to select news sources, follow social media accounts, and click on headlines that align with views they already hold. Algorithms on social platforms compound this. They're optimized to show you more of what you already engage with, which usually means more of what you already agree with. The result is that two people can look at the same underlying reality and walk away with entirely different, mutually reinforcing pictures of what's true, each one feeling completely confident they've done their research. In relationships, if you've already decided someone doesn't like you, you'll notice every slightly cold interaction as proof and unconsciously discount every warm one as an exception. If you believe your partner is inconsiderate, you'll remember every instance that fits and quietly forget the counterexamples. Confirmation bias doesn't just shape what we believe about the world, it shapes what we notice about the people closest to us. In science and expertise, yes, even here, confirmation bias isn't limited to untrained thinking. Researchers have found that even trained scientists and medical professionals are susceptible to it, favoring data that supports their hypothesis and applying more scrutiny to data that contradicts it. This is precisely why modern science relies on structures like peer review, pre-registration of hypotheses, and blind study designs. Not because individual scientists are dishonest, but because confirmation bias operates below conscious awareness, even in people specifically trained to avoid it. In investing and business decisions, once someone commits publicly to a stock pick, a business strategy, or a prediction, they tend to seek out information that supports that original call and downplay warning signs. This overlaps closely with the sunk cost fallacy we covered in episode 1. Once we're invested in being right, confirmation bias makes sure we keep finding reasons to believe we are. Confirmation bias can't be switched off entirely. It's built into how human cognition works, but there are 3 specific techniques that meaningfully reduce it. Technique 1: actively search for disconfirming evidence. Wason's research points directly to the fix. Don't just ask, what evidence supports this? Deliberately ask, what evidence would prove me wrong, and have I looked for it? This is uncomfortable because it means intentionally seeking out the strongest version of the opposing argument, not the weakest one. But it's the single most direct antidote to what Wason identified. Technique 2: assign someone the explicit role of disagreeing. In group settings, formally designate a devil's advocate, someone whose job is specifically to argue the other side, regardless of their personal opinion. Research on group decision-making shows that formally assigned dissent produces more thorough, more accurate evaluation than simply hoping someone will organically disagree. Without a designated role, confirmation bias tends to create groupthink, everyone quietly reinforcing everyone else. Technique 3: delay your conclusion. Confirmation bias strengthens the moment you commit to a belief, because from that point forward, your brain starts working to defend a position rather than evaluate it fairly, deliberately withholding judgment, gathering evidence before forming a strong opinion rather than forming the opinion first and gathering evidence after, reduces how hard your mind works to protect a conclusion you haven't actually made yet. None of these techniques eliminate confirmation bias, nothing does, but they shift the odds from unconsciously defending what you already believe to genuinely testing whether it's true. 6 outro, approximately 1 minute. Confirmation bias is unusual among the biases we've covered in this series, because once you know about it, you start noticing it everywhere. In the news you read, the arguments you have, the beliefs you defend without quite remembering why. The uncomfortable part is that knowing about it doesn't make you immune. You'll still reach for the comfortable evidence first, but you might occasionally catch yourself doing it. And that's the beginning of something more valuable than being right. It's the beginning of actually knowing whether you are. If this series is changing how you think, subscribe. There's a lot more of this coming. Next up, the halo effect. Why one good first impression can make you blind to almost everything else about a person. See you there.